Howdy y'all, welcome back. It's time for another retrospective review and deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about Far Cry Instincts. Far Cry Instincts was released on the original Xbox in 2005. It basically served as a port for the original Far Cry, which was released on Windows in 2004. The original Far Cry was developed by Crytek and published by Ubisoft. It was an open world experience and players could approach different objectives however they wanted. Far Cry Instincts, on the other hand, was both developed and published by Ubisoft, and basically saw Ubisoft taking over the franchise from there. Due to the hardware constraints of the original Xbox, Ubisoft was unable to port over a fully open world experience, and instead opted to make Far Cry Instincts a linear-based shooter. The story follows protagonist Jack Carver, a former U.S. Navy sailor who now owns his own boat and runs private boat tours in the Caribbean islands. He basically accepts a seemingly innocent gig that turns out to be a lot more than he bargained for, and all hell breaks loose. I recently did a playthrough of this year in 2023, and the game definitely shows its age. There's frequent clippings, there's environments that get in the way, and the enemy AI is less than brilliant. We'll definitely delve a little deeper into that further on, but for now, we're going to talk about the great aspects of this game. This game introduces new abilities to the franchise and incorporates player agency and environmental variety to a linear experience. The first half of the game feels like a relatively generic shooter. That being said, the shooting feels great. You also have the ability to approach objectives however you want. You can go in stealth, or you can bust out your shotgun and take enemies out. Throw grenades, or pump them full of lead. This game does an exceptional job with environmental variety, from tropical paradise to swamps to hell, even fighting on the side of a volcano. The environments are great and they look absolutely stunning. About roughly 1/3 or halfway through the game, you're introduced to feral powers, which turns our normal sailor into an unstoppable killing machine. In addition to super strength, you also gain super speed and a powerful scent detector. The game allows you to carry 3 weapons at a time: a pistol, an SMG or assault rifle, and a rocket launcher or a sniper rifle. Part of the appeal and replayability of this game comes from using conventional weapons in conjunction with your new feral abilities. You can take one enemy out from afar and then run up and send his buddy flying. Far Cry Instincts does lack enemy variation in the beginning of the game, but as you progress through the campaign, you'll come into new environments and come across new enemies and find new ways to kill those enemies. Now, a significant portion of the player agency that we talked about earlier was the ability to set traps. You can set branch traps on trees and throw rocks to lure enemies into it. This is an effective way to stealthily take out enemies. Or, if you don't have any trees around you, you can simply throw a barrel down and hopefully crush an enemy. One of my absolute favorite parts of this game, and one of the best applications of player agencies to this day, is in the mission cliffs. Not only do you emerge from a dark and dreary cave to a beautiful, majestic scene, but the environment is scattered with bridges, zip lines, and ladders that you can traverse to fight your enemies. And if you don't want to spend that time fighting the enemies, there's a hang glider right there. You can take a hang glider. I mean, you'll probably get shot at, but down the entire valley. And that, I thought, was absolutely beautiful. I just found it really refreshing to have the ability to bypass all these enemy encounters and glide down through a beautiful ravine to my next destination. Like I said before, the enemies will try to shoot at you. Whoa! And you'll probably get shot more often than not, especially by the snipers on the hunter difficulty. And the controls can be a little bit wonky. This fly-through took me several attempts to capture between snipers and just running into the side of a cliff. But the experience, in my opinion, is unparalleled, and especially in a linear shooter. Despite the stunning environments and absolutely awesome player agency, this game leaves a lot to be desired in regards to enemy AI. The enemy AI is among the most idiotic AI I have ever encountered in a video game. When you use a suppressed weapon, you might as well be using an enemy brain suppressor. You can shoot an enemy right in front of his buddy and he won't notice. Then you have other enemies coming to investigate, not realizing that their buddy is lying dead right next to them. Occasionally, you'll throw a grenade and an enemy will stand there stunned like deer in the headlights, like he didn't realize you just hit him with a grenade. But then he yells grenade, so I don't know. Check out these two schmucks down here in this cave. They even said move, move and just stood there. Frickin' idiots. The absolute worst culprits for idiotic enemies is given to these guys. You find them later in the game. They're basically science experiments gone wrong, and they are idiotic, and they can't shoot to save their life. They're pretty fun to fight because it's like taking candy from a baby, but other than that, it doesn't really add any value to the enemy AI. Cry Instincts also has a ragdoll effect that looks really unnatural when you kill enemies, especially when they fall out of vehicles. Take this helicopter for example. You shoot it with a rocket launcher and the enemies fall at a slower rate than gravity would normally allow? Well, maybe you're saying that's a one-off experience, doesn't happen with every single helicopter that you come across. Wrong. Check out these dudes. Whee! Now, it doesn't really affect gameplay, it's not really a glitch, but it is a little bit goofy, and I can see some people being turned off by this terrible application of physics. And it doesn't just happen with vehicles. You got a guy on top of a bridge, the same thing's going to happen. It just looks really damn goofy. Now, as goofy as this is, it's part of the game's core mechanics. And occasionally, you're going to run into some straight-up jank. This is dedicated to those moments when, I don't know, towers end up falling on their own, or you have glitches that you experience within the game. You can have enemies that glitch out and raise from the dead! You can even have environmental objects that geek out and start dancing around. Have you ever seen a dancing barrel before? No? Well, look to your left and you'll find one. Now with the new feral powers, you have the feral strike. And if you lock onto an enemy, you will pursue him to the ends of the earth. Now, that can be awesome, but can also present with a problem. You can bypass enemies, you can use all your adrenaline trying to chase after one enemy. And sometimes, the environment will get in the way also, and you'll still stay in that pattern of trying to strike an enemy, even if you're in a boat, and end up sending the boat inching across the river. Now when this happened, I was really worried the game was going to glitch out and freeze up. But we ended up hitting the bank and I was able to take out the enemy with a couple shots. Like an idiot though, I decided to try it on the other boat. Luckily I didn't get stuck. I was able to come back to the surface and take him out. And then Hatface over here, I took out with a few shots. Now I had mentioned stank in the slide portion of this. Basically I was referring to the feral sense effect where it looks like they have pretty much fart clouds around them. And then you have this guy over here, repels down. Reminds me of Pepe Le Pew. I mean, tell me if you see it. Look at that little smoke stink trail. Now that we have the jank and the stank taken care of, it's time to move in those moments of badassdom, as well as those boss fights, because this game does boss fights pretty well. Whether you're no-scoping enemies, or you're fighting one of the game's big brute bosses, this game has a lot of amazing parts. Now this part in particular, this section, you're not only fighting one of these big brutes, but you're fighting two at the same time. And this had me on the edge of my seat. Not only was the environment serene, you had this stormy night where it was raining, but you're fighting two of these big, tough baddies that take an insane amount of bullets to go down. I prevailed in the end, but it was still pretty nerve-wracking. Then you have the final boss encounter, which can be a pain in the ass. This took me quite a few attempts before I found the right way to do it. So basically, this guy spawns in, he's got other guys that come and try to kill you. Once you kill all of them off and do enough damage to him, he'll jump down and attack you. Now, I spent an insane amount of bullets trying to take this guy out, when really the best approach is to attack him with feral powers and back off as often as you can. Now, this game did invoke a lot of nostalgia for the movie franchise Jurassic Park. There's this scene where you're taking out the Dilophosaurus and saving Dennis Leary's life, and there's another one that looks like the treetop section thing from The Lost World. Two of my favorite weapons in the game are the unsilenced sniper rifle, which is kind of like a Barrett. Doesn't have quite as much impact as you'd like with some of the enemies, but if you hit them with a headshot, they're pretty much done. And then the M4 with the M203. As you all know, I love the M203, and it's just really satisfying to use. This part was pretty cool. Distracted an enemy and ended up making them kill each other. It was really unexpected and caught me by surprise, and I thought that was really cool. So this next section has a little bit of frustration attached to it. You have to escort a civilian through a group of enemies, and the civilian has no regard for his own safety. If he dies, you fail. I was able to find a streamlined, effective approach, and when I was able to accomplish it, it felt really satisfying. Part of that frustration did stem from these enemies themselves that you find in the late game. They're pretty much bullet sponges that are capable of taking you out in 1 or 2 shots, or taking out your escort in 1 or 2 shots. Now this scene, I just felt like Wolverine after he had woken up drunk in a bar. It was really satisfying taking those alphas out. For the most part, the enemy dialogue is cheesy, but on occasion you'll find yourself chuckling at their discourse. Now, we talked about how goofy and cheesy the ragdoll effect can be in this game, but sometimes it's just really fun, really satisfying to lob a grenade in there and send the enemy flying. Now, despite the AI being idiotic, they will definitely kill you quickly. I played through on the Hunter difficulty, which is the medium difficulty, and I found a lot of frustrating parts. But more often than not, I found a huge reason to have a big cheesy grin on my face. Now, we didn't delve into the multiplayer at all, which was a huge factor for this game and kind of set the stage for the game Evolve, which wasn't a critical or commercial success, but it had that asymmetric warfare. Overall, I'd give this game about a 7 out of 10. I had a lot of fun with it, a lot of frustrations, but in the end, it was a great experience. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. Have a good day.